You're listening to the winning literary show, Off the Shelf Books Talk Radio, live with host Denise Turney, author of the books Long Mock-Up, Portia, Love Pour Over Me, Spiral, Love Has Many Faces, and Rosetta's Great Hope. Turn up your dial and get ready for a blast of feature author interviews, 411 on book festivals, writing conferences, and so much more. Ready? Let's go.
Do what you feel in your heart to be right, for you'll be criticized anyway. So kicking off today's Off the Shelf show for this March the 19th, 2022, and that's from Eleanor Roosevelt. I like to start the show with a thought, just with a thought to jump off the show with. Do what you feel in your heart to be right, for you'll be criticized anyway. Do what you know is right for you, the best thing for you, instead of being guided by fear of what others might say or think. Do what you feel in your heart to be right. That's from Eleanor Roosevelt. And then I got to ask you guys, do you love mysteries? And I've been asking you this for the last 2 to 3 years, but this is a whole nother book. Do you love mystery and suspense? And this story is tied to real-life events that have off and on dominated headline news. What's the title of this book? Escaping Toward Freedom. Every page is written to keep you hanging on, wondering what's going to happen next, tight, tense scenes to see what is the final outcome of this story, and I bet you can't predict it. I encourage you, if you love mystery and suspense, I encourage you to get a copy of Escaping Toward Freedom, and it's my latest novel by yours truly, Denise Turney. You can get it ebook, paperback, hardback. You can get it at Kobo. You can get it iTunes. You can get it Apple Books. You can get it at Barnes & Noble, Amazon, or at my website, Chistel, CHISTELL.com. Again, it's Escaping Toward Freedom by Denise Turney. And now let us go and meet our very special off-the-shelf guest. I learned something from every guest on the show. You guys, we had it for 16 years on the air. 16 years. We started on Real Radio over on Rainbow Soul, a real radio station. Then we came over onto the podcast platform, but Off the Shelf's been around going on 16 years now. And for every guest, I've learned something from every guest. And I'm so excited to introduce you to today's guest and see what he has to share. And our special Off the Shelf guest this morning is, and I hope I pronounce his name right, is Constantine Dhonau. And Constantine is a life coach, consultant, and author. He does creative writing, web design, social media management, and business startup consulting. He is also the author of the book Collateral Intentions. It's a memoir comprised of poems, short stories, letters, journal entries, and other forms of expression. You can check him out. I encourage you to check Constantine out online at I'm going to spell it, ConstantInedhonau.com. ConstantInedhonau.com. We are absolutely honored to have, and I hope I'm picking up the right line. We are absolutely honored to have Constantine with us on Off the Shelf this morning. Welcome to Off the Shelf, Constantine.
Good morning, Denise. How you doing this morning?
I'm doing good. I hope I'm picking up the right line. Am I pronouncing your name correctly?
Oh, you're pretty close. You know, it's always a guessing game with people. It's fun when I like to play. It's Constantine Dhonau, but that's all right.
Okay. Well, it's such a pleasure to have it. And for some reason, I'm excited to hear what you share during today's show. I don't know if you're going to drop some gold nuggets on us, but before we get to talking about your writings and your book, Collateral Intentions, and more of your work, your consulting work, and how you help startup business owners, I'm going to ask you the first 3 to 4 questions I ask every guest who comes on the show, so our listeners get a little backstory on the guests before we start talking about their books. So to kick it off this morning, Constantine, can you tell us where you grew up and what life was like for you growing up?
I was born around Miami, Florida, and I grew up in St. Petersburg, Florida, Tampa Bay area. I spent the first 22, 23 years of my life over there, and I live in Colorado now, so I'm glad to be living in the Colorado mountains. But living in Florida, I was raised primarily by my mother and my aunts, 2 sisters, 2 wonderful women that raised me, and I grew up in Boy Scouts. I was the lead singer of a punk ska band for about 3 years. Yeah. So I went camping pretty much once a month, and I did all right in school. I got decent grades. My mom always told me I could have got straight A's if I tried a little bit harder, but I just wasn't interested in that. And so life was all right. Living by the beach. Only child, yes. Child? Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. I do have a half sister that lives over in Greece on my dad's side.
Florida, you like Colorado more than Florida?
I do, yeah, but I think it might be a grass is always greener type situation. You grow up near the beach, you want the mountains. You grow up in the mountains, you want the beach.
Yeah, okay. Because most people would go for Florida all the way. Like you said, the weather and the beach in Colorado, and you get all 4 seasons in Colorado, that's for sure. Now, when you were a kid, you talked about you were a lead singer in a punk band, and that was certainly probably in your teen years, I'm imagining up. But the different, you went camping a lot and growing up around the beach. But when you were a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up? What did you dream of being when you grew up?
Oh, the standard stuff. I had phases of thinking about being a firefighter, or policeman, or superhero. Mostly dreamed about being a superhero, but as always, I always dreamed of helping people. It's always service oriented, and that's kind of been a theme throughout my life. Is how can I be of service to others? That's the big thing for me.
Now, who or what inspired you to pursue writing and book publishing?
Yeah, well, I started writing, somewhat seriously when I was 17. Started keeping a journal at least, and started doing poetry and things more regularly. And so I've been keeping a journal since I was 17 years old, and that starts the way I think really any writer, any artist starts, because of man or woman, because of some heartbreak. So there's a girl that I was interested in and got my heart broken and just started writing about things. And years and years go on, and the way that I keep my journals is a little bit different from most people. I write them the way anybody else would, but I like to have other people write in my journals as well, and they can read them and all that. So the book is pulled from my journals, and I believe in openness, transparency, vulnerability. We're all human beings. We all have our problems aren't so different from each other, So what inspired me to become an author was basically... Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I want to hear what inspired you to become an author.
Yeah. I was pulling pieces out of my journals and putting all these poems together just because they're scattered across, 11 different volumes, and there's all kinds of artwork and stuff in them, so it'd be nice to have them in one clean, polished volume. And as I was putting it together, my friends started asking for a copy of it, because I would read poetry at open mics and share them with friends and things like that. And they're like, well, when you put something together, give me a copy. So more and more people started asking for it, and I was like, well, maybe I could do something with this. And I had done a lot of writing in college. My thesis, I think, is what gave me the confidence to write a full-length book. I did a 115-page senior thesis in college, and that kind of cleared the path of like, yeah, I know how to write, I know how to put things together, I know how to edit and proofread and work on really big projects like that.
I have to ask you this. I'm listening to you and journaling. That's something that sometimes, I majored in psychology, sometimes psychologists, if somebody's stuck having an issue, they'll say, try journaling. You know, try to write your dreams down and see what your subconscious is saying. Or try journaling, you might be able to write your way through it. But it's rare, I find, that a teenager, I know you said you think it's common that writers start that way. Well, maybe they do. In the years I've been doing off the shelf, I haven't often heard writers say they got started writing books through journaling. But kudos to you for finding a way to work through that. But was anybody else in your family, because you seem to almost have naturally gone into writing, was anybody else in your family who was a writer?
No, nobody.
Okay. So you start writing.
My mother kept a journal. That kind of inspired me in a small way, but it was like, I don't know. And what I found when I was going through and putting this book together, going back through my journals and pulling these pieces out, you know, for the first several months, you know, I'd go back and look at my journals every now and again anyways, because I'd pick a random day and be like, okay, what was going on, you know, November 20th, 5 years ago, and I could find that, or I could find it across, you know, year after year after year. You know, if there's something going on, it's like, what is there a pattern that's going on here? And I can look at every single year, and there's pretty similar themes that happen. You know, the cycles are real.
Wow. You know, I've been journaling for over probably 20 years. I never thought to do what you're saying, to go back and just say what was happening on this day 5 years ago. Very interesting. Now, you say, what you started journaling. You were sharing these journals with your friends. You did some spoken word, and then they said, they thought you should do something with it. That's what inspired you to actually write Collateral Intentions. But you said something earlier I wanted to ask you about. You said when you do your journals, it's not just you doing the journal entries, but other people. Can you expound on that? How does that work, where other people are also contributing to your journal entries?
Yeah, I usually offer my journals up to people, you know, just if the mood strikes me, but especially when there's some kind of like really real, raw, pivotal moment happening in their life. I've had family, friends, and strangers write in my journals, and when they write in there, they can read anything they want to as well. It's, you know, kind of open book policy, and so I have the first draft of one of my best friend's wedding vows in there, and on the back of the page is his wife's wedding vows, and she stuck her fake eyelashes from the wedding on the page as well. I've got another one of my best friends wrote a poem when he found out that his grandmother had died. I've got notes from people that were reflecting on breaking up or getting broken up with, or moving, starting a new career. So it's just kind of like, because the way I see it is my life isn't just me. It's not my experience. It's all of these relationships that I have. And so I want to capture that in my journals for me to look back on, for me to reflect on. And, you know, it's not just me living my life and my perspective. It's all these people that I'm interacting with that are creating the puzzle of the life that I'm living.
I'm telling you. So here's the thing. Later in the interview, if we have time, I always like to share marketing tips with our listeners who might be small business owners, or they might be writers themselves looking for new ways to connect with more readers and market and sell more copies of their books. This is one thing I'm hearing loud and clear. I mean, listening to you as far as marketing Collateral Intentions. I've never even heard ever of what you're doing. I've never heard of somebody saying, I mean, you could really market this in so many ways. Self-help, it's so many ways you could market this. Go back to just pick a date, or just wherever your finger lands and just read a few pages and see what was going on in your life. Then see, like you said, if you can see some patterns that are coming up. But I've never, ever heard of anyone who had let somebody else read their journals and write in them. That is, when you're marketing Collateral Intentions, it's not just a journal with your poems and song, but it's the way you approached it and created it. I've never heard of. It's like a very, very, very unique. Just your approach with it. That's a great way to market your book. But so about Collateral Intentions for our off-the-shelf listeners, this is said, it spans the gamut of self-reflection, opening the door to our own dark and private worlds, and inspiring us to own the power of what makes us human, our ability to grow and adapt. How does Collateral Intentions, Constantine, help us to own and better navigate our life journeys?
I think it's the rawness and the realness of it. The way the book is structured is basically 10 years, 11 years of my life. It's 10 chapters, and at the end of each chapter there's a kind of 1 or 2 page synopsis of what was going on in my life at the time, just to give the work some context. And so there's poems and journal entries and letters written to other people, and these are all like my thoughts, my feelings, my life. And the whole idea behind it is these are the things that I've struggled with. These are the things that I've succeeded with. These are the choices that I've made in my coming of age into adulthood. And I'm not the President of the United States. I'm not a billionaire. I'm not like a recovering heroin addict or anything. I'm just an everyday person living my life. So I think it's really accessible. I think it's really relatable, and the idea is just for people to have something to connect with. So if they're out there, they don't feel so alone in their journey. If they're not feeling, special, or like they're not feeling noticed, or they don't feel like they have a way to see what other people's experiences are. This is it. Like, this is just an everyday person's journey through life, finding their way, and through that, hopefully, they get inspired to share more of their story as well, instead of holding it in, and they can step into their power. And by being in vulnerability, they become invulnerable, and they become stronger through that.
Interesting. It's almost like you actually know the next question I was going to ask. I was going to ask you, how can we practice vulnerability, and how does that make us strong? Because the initial thought, I would imagine, for me, is being vulnerable makes you weak, and it can expose you to people taking advantage of you. But how can we practice vulnerability, number one, and then how does that practice actually make us stronger?
Yeah, big thing for me that's made a huge impact on my life is self-compassion. You said you studied psychology. I don't know if you've heard about Kristin Neff or not.
No, I haven't.
Yeah, might be a fun one for you to look into if you're looking into more. You want to get back into the psychology realm. So self-compassion is this psychological theory that was established in 2003, and there's 3 different pillars that it kind of revolves around. But the whole idea is to be compassionate towards yourself, to relate to yourself as if you are your own best friend instead of your own worst enemy. What would you want your mother, your father, or your best friend, someone who really loves you, what would they say to you when you're having a hard time, when you're really feeling down and criticizing yourself? So to practice that vulnerability is I think starts with forming a better relationship with yourself. And from there, other people's opinions don't matter so much, and you become more fortified in who you are. And I had some pretty big stuff that's happened to me in the past year where, it could be said that someone took advantage of me and my kindness and my vulnerability. But it's really, for me, it ended up being a huge expression and experience of trust in the universe and the way things go, trust in myself. And so I had a friend and I, we started a business together. Things were going really well, and then he kind of kicked me out and went off the deep end. when all that happened, it was like, you know what? I've offered so much love in this relationship, and I've seen a better side of that person, and I hope that they can find it themselves. But their darkness kind of took hold of them because they haven't formed that relationship with themselves. So I felt like, you know, I've given you so much love, and I've given you so much guidance and wisdom and direction, and I've offered a relationship in your life that you maybe have never had before in somebody in this capacity, and I hope it works out for you. You know, so that's like, I was vulnerable, I got taken advantage of, quote unquote, but I feel okay about it because I'm on my journey, and I hope yours gets better and you feel better about yourself.
Wow, yeah. We each have to learn from our mistakes. They say we all are always teaching and learning, and it is important that we love and accept ourselves, because if not, we'll end up projecting those issues on the other people. Can you tell us about two short stories in Collateral Intentions, and is everything you write in the book nonfiction, or do you do any fictional writing in Collateral Intentions?
There is one in particular that is a little bit kind of plays with fiction and nonfiction, and it's basically like some flash fiction, and it's a letter to the future. And so it talks about how the world's wealth is being bought and consolidated into this group called like the 1K, who's basically 1,000 people that own 99.99999% of the world's wealth. And the whole idea there is kind of, like cultural boundaries have been washed out. It's all become a corporation, and I've done all I can, and so it's up to the future generation. And just like the past generations told me that it's up to me, now I'm telling you that it's up to you, and there's this kind of like passing of the buck that's constantly happening, and this sort of inaction that's constantly happening.
So that one's sort of a fictional in there, one of the short stories. And what way? So somebody picks up Collateral Intentions. It kicks off when you're 17. You start journaling. A relationship didn't go the way that you hoped that it would have. And what other ways will readers actually see you transform, evolve, and change through as they read Collateral Intentions from 17? You're 17 when you start writing it, and you're 28 when you finish. How will they see you change during that time period?
Well, I think there's, in some of the poetry and some of the journal entries, there's some classic, like, teenage boy angst, oh, I'm misunderstood and rebellious and, like, I don't want to go to college and blah, 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 and then start coming around to the idea of, maybe I do want to go to college, and I start meeting people, fall in love. You see my evolution as a writer, like the quality of the writing gets better as it goes on, as I practice my craft more. I think those are the biggest ways. Okay.
And maybe they could even see how they're changing themselves as they, during that same time period, how they change as they reflect back. How did you free yourself? How did you free yourself from this black and white thinking that everything is either this way totally or that way totally?
I think a lot of that happened in the past 5 years or so. I think the big introduction to that was LGBTQ populations in talking about the spectrum of sexuality. And then from there, learning about the spectrum of autism and just this kind of idea of spectrums. So I think those were the first introductory ideas. And then as time went on, I used to be a wilderness therapy field guide. So I'd take out, I would take teenagers and young adults that were struggling with self-harm or suicidal stuff, drug addiction, game addiction, things like that, behavior issues, and we'd be out there in the wilderness with them doing therapy with them. And yeah, that's I learned more about like some cognitive distortions and built on that from I also studied psychology in college as well. So I think just over time I learned about it conceptually, and then I started to really reflect on that in myself and how comfortable it is when things are black and white. But that's not the way the world works.
So can you give us an example when you say how comfortable it is when it's black and white versus when you realize it's really not that way?
Yeah, it's hard to think of one on the spot, but
okay.
I think no. Here, I think dating is a really great one, right? That's where we're starting to form relationships with people, and we want things to be black and white. You know, are you in or are you out? It's like, well, you know, we don't really know yet. We're still trying to find each other out. We're still trying to build this relationship. So, and in relationships in general, I think it's more comfortable when things are black or white. It's either you're in or you're out. You love me or you don't. You support me or you don't support me. It's like, well, I'm going to support you most of the time, but if you start doing some stupid stuff, then I'm not going to be supporting you. You know, it's not black or white. There's room for negotiation between, so the gray area is really where the juice is.
Good point. That's a great example. Yes, and then are you in or out that no matter what I do and say or how I treat you, you'll always be here, treating me like I'm just wonderful. Yeah, and so that is a good one. That is a good one. And then some of it is some of work. No matter what goes down here, you're never going to leave. Or it can be. I can see where, yeah. And you can definitely see that in things like religion and the way parenting. And yeah, but the world really doesn't work that way. Now, I want to pivot a little bit from Collateral Intentions because you do a lot of other things. And I have to ask you, so for you, which came first, Constantine? Your book writing, your life coaching, and consulting. Which one did you start getting involved with first?
Writing. Started with writing.
Okay, the writing came first. Can you tell our off-the-shelf listeners about some of the services that you offer, particularly to entrepreneurs looking to start a business?
Absolutely, yeah. I help people navigate establishing their LLCs and finding the right resources. You know, the hardest thing, especially with starting your own business, and, you know, this is coming from personal experience, the hardest thing can be, number one, believing in yourself. Number two, holding yourself accountable. And so the big advantages of working with a life coach or business consultant in that realm is you have someone that's going to hold you externally accountable and cheer you on. Like, yes, you can do this. And we'll make the plans. We're going to find the steps. And, you know, a big thing I want to make clear is with any life coach or anything like that or any consultant, like, they don't have all the answers up front, but they have the wherewithal and the skills to help find the answers with you, to make that plan, to break it down into small steps, to make it achievable, and to drive you forward.
So you help people, you know, because I work with somebody who's going into life coaching, and she said you never tell people what to do. There's the ways you ask certain questions. You help say things like, what if? How have you considered? And then they have to make the decision. You cannot give them. You can't tell them what to do. They have to. You just try to remove some blind spots so they can start to. I never thought of it that way. Oh, I never even saw that. And so then the doors start to swing open on their own. Now, you also do like social media. You said web design and other social media services. Can you tell us about the types of social media management services? Do you manage websites? Do you not only designing them or hosting them? What types of social media management services do you offer?
I don't offer a whole lot of social media management. It's mostly getting social media accounts started, giving some tips on how to get things rolling, and getting everything interconnected so that it creates more of an ecosystem. And then as far as the website design goes, I do a lot of, I prefer working with Wix.com. That's my preferred engine builder. And so if people have nothing that they, like no website to start with, or they have a website that maybe they're not very happy with, I can build them something that's really nice, that looks clean. And we can talk, I talk with my clients about, do we want to do ClickFunnels type situation, like one page leads straight into the next, or do we want to have multiple options? How do we want to build it out? So I have some experience with that as well.
So let me ask you this. In today's world, where in social media, it changes so fast. I can remember years ago it was MySpace, and then it's like MySpace went totally away, even though it's still in existence, and a lot of major singers and musicians still share their material on MySpace, and they have an album release, or et cetera. But MySpace kind of was huge, and then here comes Facebook, and then Twitter. But now people are talking about TikTok, and videos are in, and so it keeps changing. It when I first came out, my book Portia was released August of 1998. Since then, I'm telling you, it was when I first came out, you had to have a website. Now it's like, do you really need one? So I was going to ask you, if you have a strong social media presence, do you really need to have a website? I know what my answer, I think, is, and I would say yes. But based on your experience, what would you say to somebody? Just keep building out your social media presence?
Well, the thing is, it depends. It does depend on what you're pushing, what you're offering, how you're selling it, and what your offers are. Because, you got things like you can make your online shop on Instagram right now, where people just buy things directly on Instagram. They can buy things on Facebook. But when it comes down to it, and the other thing is also like what are you defining as a website? What we say as a website is starting to change as well as things go more mobile, and there's a whole other rabbit hole. But we're on the web 2.0 right now, and we got the web 3.0 coming up, and there's going to be a lot of big changes there. So it's really like, what is a website? Right now it's something that's designed for desktop. Is it going to switch to something that's more designed for mobile? And then is it going to become something that's more designed for virtual reality? Are you going to be walking into a three-dimensional space in virtual reality, So I think the big thing to consider is the world is changing at an accelerating rate. And you see that, from my Facebook to Instagram to Twitter and to Snapchat to TikTok. Just be prepared to adapt. And short answer, do you need a website? No, you don't need a website. Is it going to help you? Is it going to make you look more professional? Is it going to give people a place to go? Is it going to show up better on Google when you search it? Yeah, it will help. It definitely will not hurt you, and it will 100% help.
It's so interesting what you said. Like, I was watching a show where people literally, and this guy who's got his music career started this way, and he met a woman that they have a son together with now. They have these virtual worlds. You literally go into, I've never done it. You literally go into the virtual world, and I can't think of the word, but you don't look like yourself. You're I forget the word. Avatar. You're an avatar, and you really live a life in this virtual world. And it's so bizarre. When you said that, going from websites to this virtual world, and that's where you sell your products, it's changing that fast. And so, like your services, you need somebody like you who can keep up with these changes. Somebody who knows what's coming next. They can help you build something out, so you're out in front of it. You're not always playing catch up. And I think that's really important. So like your website design, social media services, do you have any that focus on helping authors, writers specifically, help them build and strengthen their brand and sell more of their books? Can your services help authors?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, through my own journey and publishing and marketing my own book, I mean, I've done everything. I did every single piece of my book myself, 100% DIY, from putting it all together, editing, proofreading, drafting, redrafting, designing. I did the cover. I chose the fonts. I chose the pictures. I self-published it. I've been marketing it. I've done everything from front to back. So I've got a lot of experience and a lot of trial and error. So I found a lot of things that work and a lot of things that don't work. So I have a lot to offer in that realm.
Okay. Can you give us a glimpse? And I'm kind of flipping a little bit from the writing to you do about. I'm thinking 3 different things. I'm focusing on your consulting, your coaching. You do the web design, and of course, Collateral Intentions, your personal writing. But for now, can you give us a glimpse into what happens during a free coaching and consulting session with you? And how long are those sessions, and are they virtual?
Right. So I do 30-minute free consultations, and that's really an opportunity for my clients to get to know me and for me to get to know my clients. So a lot of time we'll do video calls. You can do, we do Zoom, Skype, Google, anything that works for you. They pick a time, they schedule it on Calendly, and there's a link and all that on my website. So they pick a time that works for them. We'll have a 30-minute call. So it's a time to just communicate with each other, just get a feel for each other, to see each other, to talk with each other, and get a feel for, are we going to gel as a life coach and a client? Because, I'm not looking to take every single client that gives me a call. I really want it to be a good fit. I want it to be a good relationship. And, if it doesn't work out, it doesn't mean life coaching isn't for you, but you need a different kind of life coach with a different approach so that you're more comfortable in the relationship, because the comfort and the trust is crucial to be able to make progress. So the 30 minutes really revolves around me asking a little bit about my clients, what's your backstory, what are you trying to accomplish, and giving them an opportunity to ask me about some of my experience, things that I offer. If they have specific questions around the packages that I offer, I have 5 different coaching programs, and I also do smaller cycles, 3-session batches that can revolve around relationships, career, personal development, spiritual development. So that's what the 30-minute calls look like.
So why would somebody? So let me the difference, and I'm thinking as a off the shelf listener, what is the difference between life coaching and somebody going to talk to a therapist? What is the difference there?
Absolutely, it's a great question. I get that question all the time, and the baseline difference, simple answer: therapists work with past and present. Life coaches work with present and future. And the way that I also like to talk to my clients is, in my ideal situation as a life coach, my clients aren't only working with, for me, the perfect client is getting a life coach on their team, a personal trainer on their team, a therapist on their team. They're building a team of people around them because they're really investing in their growth. And as a life coach, I have certain capabilities and I have certain limitations. A personal trainer, same thing. Therapist, same thing. So ideally, a client is looking to build a team around them. And maybe it doesn't happen simultaneously. Maybe it's part of the process, but just understanding that this is one part of your life and your process and your growth. So the big thing for life coaches, we work with what's going on right now. Where do you want to be? Okay, let's work backwards. Let's break it down into a plan. And I'm going to hold my clients accountable. I'm going to check in with them, make sure that they're feeling all right about their progress, and adjusting things so that it consistently feels good as they work through their process. Because sometimes we're too ambitious and we fall short of the goals that we make. And then we end up spinning down the spiral, feeling like we can't do anything. Sometimes we're not ambitious enough to do a little bit of something that's easy, and we're like, oh, great, we did it. And we're not making as much progress as we could. So finding that constant edge to say, okay, we're just on the threshold of doing not enough and doing too much. And then, with therapists, if you have diagnoses, if you suspect that there's something that's undiagnosed in you, as far as psychological, emotional disorder or something like that, if you need medication, that's where it's like, okay, I can't help you with that. You need to talk to a therapist about that. We can continue to work together if the relationship's feeling really good, but I need to know that you're taking care of yourself and you're seeking people that are experienced in that realm of diagnosis.
I think it's very important when you said you're building a team. I can just say when I'll use a church, for example. A pastor can't do everything. And I've seen where people almost expect the pastor to be the family counselor, the therapist, psychotherapist, life coach.
Of course.
Everything. And he can't do everything. So you building a team. I like that concept that you say if somebody comes to you as a life coach, like, I can't do everything, I'm a part of your team. You might need to also reach out for help here or there. When you work with your clients, do you see, what are some of the top 3 things that you see are keeping people from achieving the goals they want? And they might have been passionate for this for years, and they just can't get there. What are the top 3 things you've seen that are like a roadblock, just keeping them from it?
I mean, the number one overall, of course, is motivation, keeping themselves motivated. And as part of motivation is also the accountability. I'm sure we could all imagine in any situation, any time that we're trying to do something for somebody else, we show up for it. You wake up every morning, you go to work, you clock out because you're accountable to somebody else. If you're giving somebody a gift or something for Christmas, when it comes to doing things for others, there's just a little bit of extra pressure and a little more desire to serve. And this is, again, where the self-compassion comes in. We don't treat ourselves the same as we treat other people. And we let ourselves off the hook when it comes to doing things for ourselves. Maybe we're planning to go to the gym. It's like, well, I'm going to skip today, or I'm going to wait an extra hour. Maybe we're trying to hold ourselves to a diet. Maybe we have a to-do list and we only get half of it done, whatever it is. It's like, well, I did as much as I could. We just don't push as hard a lot of times for ourselves. So there's the motivation and the accountability. And another big thing, I got to say it, it's COVID.
Really?
COVID's changed a lot of things. Yes, COVID. It's because of the connection. People can't connect like they used to. And the expectation and the dynamic around connection, in my mind, and what I see, is changing.
Really? Even as, we're coming out of it. People are going back to work. Some people never did, some people, hospitals, nurses, firemen, police officers, some people never did go home for COVID. They were always going to work. And that's in the millions of people who they never did get to stay at home. But a lot did, especially a lot of people in white-collar jobs did get to stay at home. But even with the return to the office, and I got to tell you, there's a situation that came up recently, and a person told me they were really struggling and an issue. And just hearing you talk about this, if this comes back up on Monday, I had thought about it. They said this problem started about a year ago, and I'm like, it sounded like it was something around COVID, that either being out on COVID so long or trying to come back to the office from COVID created an issue. When you say COVID, how do you see it changing us? We're starting to get people starting to get back out there. They're going to the stores. It's like we're coming back. How do you see where it's changed? Had this deep change?
I mean, the number one thing that I'm noticing is just connection. People are more disconnected. I mean, for instance, I had a call a couple days ago, a life coaching call, and this person is feeling depressed, they're feeling sad, they're feeling out of touch, and they're like doing school online. They're not going into work, and basically the common denominator that I saw is like, you have no connection in your life. You're not spending quality time with people, and so that's become the norm for a lot of people. One, we're just less driven to do it now because the whole world has changed, and we just got used to for the past year or two, and especially these kids, high school, college, like they're missing out on walking in graduation ceremonies. They're missing out on like a lot of the big parties that we get so much fun and connection out of as young people. And so it kind of like stunted our growth and connection for 2 years. And, you're talking about people struggling to come back into the office. I mean, it's just a huge change. There's so many people are having to adapt to. They adapted to working from home, and they're disconnecting. They're trying to adapt back to what it was. And, hopefully it stays how it is. But, yeah. And I don't want to talk about COVID too much because we're all sick and tired of it, but that's a huge factor that I see, that even as we're coming out of it, it's going to have lasting effects.
Wow, and I think it's something. I know you say you don't want to talk about it too much, but I think it's something that companies might see issues, and they're wondering why is this issue here, and they don't realize it is related to that. It is related to this shift, because you're like, this problem wasn't here before, and now it could be a relationship problem. You're like, it wasn't here before, so what? There's something we need to dig into, and I expect that there will be more dialogue as people start to see issues crop up, and they're like, it didn't start until before this. Yeah. This issue didn't even exist, and so I think there will be more dialogue and more ways to work around it. It's beyond just physically changing where you work or something. I really do, just based on one experience I've had. Not for me, but with somebody else, I really think there's going to have to be more dialogue around it. So as we come down to, we're within we got about less than 15 minutes to go. I have to ask you, you're very creative. You were a lead singer in a band. You've got your business going. Collateral Intentions, mainly nonfiction, but I have to ask you this because you seem to have a creative mind. Do you ever plan to write a novel, Constantine? And if you wrote a novel, what would it be about? You could use your life coaching experiences, everything, and write a great novel. Would you ever have desire to do that? And if so, what would that novel be about?
Yeah, I'm not sure about a novel. That's a whole other game. But maybe at some point, I practice here and there with short stories. But I tend to be drawn towards science fiction. I tend to be drawn toward dystopian things. I like some of that darker stuff. So,
okay. What? Go ahead.
So I would say that maybe I could see that happening in the future. As of right now, I got 3 or 4 book ideas that I'm working on that are more nonfiction based and a lot more, similar kind of self-help focus. Because like I said, I enjoy being of service. Like I said at the beginning of the interview, I like being of service to others and helping people find their way. And so I like a lot of those practical pieces.
Mm-hmm.
But if I were to write a novel, it would probably be some science fiction dystopian stuff. Probably, yeah.
And what have readers been saying about Collateral Intentions? Are people loving it? What are they saying about it? I mean, you've got so many different writing forms in the book.
Well, I mean, a lot of people say that like they can't read it in one go, and it's not because it's not readable, accessible. It's just they've been saying that there's so much in there and it's so dense. It's the type of book that you don't want to blow through. You pick it up, you put it down, you're like, I got to think about this. You come back to it.
Very, very thoughtful.
Yes. Yeah, thought-provoking.
Very thoughtful. Yes.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of...
You go ahead.
No, and then when you put it down, it's somehow your experiences that changed you, that you shared, they may have actually changed the reader as well. It sounds like it. It's that kind of book.
Yeah, there's been some other authors that have read the book as well, and for them, they said it's like a breath of fresh air when it comes to the way that it's written and the way it's put together. You know, there's so much. It's so smart, and there's so much wisdom, and there's so much art in there, and it's at the same time it's so unpretentious. You know, it's not kind of like touting itself in this realm of like inaccessibility. It's easy, it's open, it's relatable. And, I think that's the big common thing people have been coming down to is, you know, it's really relatable, and they've had moments that they've really, really connected with pieces. And my hope, my dream for anybody reading this book is that they, you know, the book gets beaten up. It's not a Bible to be kept sacred. You know, mark it, dog ear it, highlight, underline, tear pages out, share it. You know, maybe a few copies get burned in some ceremonial fire. Yeah, I would love for people to really interact with it and tear it up.
Okay. Now, what writing process do you follow, Constantine? Do you use like outlines? How do you start to craft a short story, a poem? How do you start to craft your writing?
Usually, I mean, it depends on which one I'm going for. With poetry, it usually starts with a feeling, and one or two lines will pop up in my head. And I spend a lot of time walking at night. I'm a bit of a night creature, so I'll usually go for a walk, and I'll kind of type some notes on my phone as I go, or maybe I'll do a voice memo. Every once in a while, I'll like have my journal on hand, and I'll just start writing from there. But a lot of them start with sitting down, what am I feeling, put it in words on the page. I'll do it in one sitting, and I may or may not revisit it and rework it. Most of the short stories I've written, they start with a dream. I'll have a really vivid dream, and I'll wake up and I'll start writing down everything I can from that dream and creating a story around that.
Interesting. That I find interesting.
And then, yeah, general writing process. I'll start with a bit of a word vomit, and then create an outline. So it really depends on the approach. If it's creative stuff, it's a lot about like kind of momentary inspiration and harnessing that and getting as much down as I can. Versus, you know, more of the nonfiction structured stuff is like outline and put a lot into it. And normally I can be somewhat manic about my approach. You know, I'll spend sometimes 2 or 3 days straight working on a project. I'll just like wake up and go until 5 o'clock in the morning and sleep for a couple hours and do that for 2 or 3 days, and then I'll put it down for weeks or months and come back to it.
Now, we've talked some about your writing process, the process you have to actually follow to do, like your poems, your short stories, etc. Can you share 3 to 4 steps, Constantine, that you take that you personally have found to be effective at getting the word out about your books?
So personally, I walk into local bookshops whenever I'm like driving through a town. If I'm on a road trip or something, I'll bring copies in and I'll be like, hey, I've got this book. Do you want to sell it here? And, you know, that's just a numbers game. I'd say about half the time the bookstores are like, yeah, you know, we'd love to support small authors and local authors and stuff. We'd love to have it here. And so that's one way. You know, basically keeping books on you all the time, number one, and talk about it. Talk about your book. Another way, obviously, you've got to be on social media. You've got to be online. And the biggest thing I can say is videos change the game. People love moving content in videos more than still content.
Interesting.
So, yeah, make some videos. People like to see you. People like to hear from you. People like the personal connection and relationship that they can get online. You know, from a distance, they get a chance to know you kind of as a person And then as they read your book, as they read your story, they know where it's coming from and who it is and kind of who it's about, what it's about. And it doesn't have to be like a whole huge production, studio lights, all this. That could be just, pull your phone out, take a 30-second video, talk about the book, talk about what's going on in your life, and just form that relationship with your readers.
Okay. Where can Off the Shelf listeners get a copy of Collateral Intentions?
My favorite way for people to get a copy of Collateral Intentions is go to indiebound.org. And that's a fantastic website. You can order any book that's available online to your local bookstore. So you support local business, you support your local bookstores, they'll get it in for you, and that's the best way to do it, I think. Or go to the local bookstore and request it themselves. Otherwise, you can find it at all the usual channels, Amazon, all those places. Just Google it and you can find it. It is there.
I love that indiebound.org push, and then what is it? I want to say, is it Bookshop? That's another one that supports local bookstores. Because God bless local booksellers. I mean, I love local bookstores, so I really appreciate you sharing that. Indiebound.com. You support your local bookstores, or just go in and ask them for it, and they can order you a copy through a distributor. We are coming down to the end of the show. Do you have any upcoming speaking engagements that you can share with our listeners? Any other interviews, et cetera, you're doing?
Nothing on the books for that at this point. I've been kind of switching gears out of book world into life coaching world and really focusing on that lately. So I have some workshops coming up. I will put a plug out there that actually you're up in New York, right?
No, I'm actually in Tennessee. I used to be in Pennsylvania, okay. But no. But go ahead, tell us.
There are some masculinity workshops that are in the works right now. And we're going to be calling it Man Camp. And basically me and 3 of my very experienced, very knowledgeable wonderful friends, we are putting together a few workshops this summer. So keep an eye out for those. Let me see if I can get the Instagram tag that we'll be pulling it up on. Where can they find more information on those at? So you can look up soleadolavender.com. That's SOLEADO lavender.com. We're going to be doing the workshops on a lavender farm. It's going to be really amazing. And we are still getting some of the contact information for the Instagram and the marketing, but you can also follow me on Instagram, foolish_Dow. You can go to my website, ConstantineDhonau.com, and you don't have to know how to spell my last name. Google will fix it. Do your best. And you can find me on Facebook. You can find me on LinkedIn as well. Just plug in Constantine Dhonau, and I will come up, and you'll find more information about those workshops, and we'll be putting out more information on other Instagram profiles as well.
Well, I want to thank you, Constantine. This is a man on the move. And he started writing when a relationship didn't go the way he wanted to, and look where he is now. Oh my goodness! So you just keep going on your journey. You are a long way from there. So you just keep going, and you just trust your journey, as he said earlier in today's show. In the process. Thank you so much, Constantine. And I do hope that something that was shared here today, it might be just what somebody needs to keep moving forward. And so, as I always tell you, first of all, thank you for joining us here at Off the Shelf. Remember, set your calendar, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time or New York City time. You're going to catch Saturday mornings, every Saturday morning, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. You're going to tune in to Off the Shelf, where you can get so many good nuggets, entertainment, etc., just like you did today, from Constantine, from other amazing authors as well. Thank you, Constantine. To our listeners, as I always tell you, you are amazing, incredible You are fabulous. Go out and create a wonderful day for yourself today. When the show finishes streaming, Constantine, I'll send you a link to the show. Bye for now.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day and enjoy the weekend. Happy spring break.